Those were not even armed. And even if they had been armed, okay, nobody had a concept about shooting an airliner down. Because all hijackings, they just want to go to Cuba and get their buddies out of jail somewhere and have some money. Nobody ever thought of the concept of having to shoot these down. We were in Cheyenne Mountain the morning of September 11th, and we'd already been there for 2 weeks. We were doing our annual global vigilant warrior exercise with the Strategic Air Command guys, the STRATCOM guys. Anybody ever see the movie War Games? That's what we're doing. It's the World War III end of the world scenario with missiles going everywhere. But we have to do it because you got to be ready just in case. Not likely anymore, but you got to at least practice. We were about to wind that exercise down, and the Russians moved some bombers up by Anadir. Okay, you got to sign another sheet. Dadgummit. Which they do every their fall exercise to their northern tier bases. Well, I don't know if you remember, but back in '98 time frame, one of those Russian bombers decided to tool around all of Alaska and just go flying around, and nobody really. Two F-15s are 90 miles behind it, chasing it, and some Northwest pilot goes, "Hey, there's a bear hotel out here," and Senator Stevens was a little upset about that. So ever since that day, when the Russians would move up to their northern exercise time, we'd have to put people on a little bit more of alert. And we would stand up the crisis action team. Generally, a handful of us would go to the mountain, the air director, myself, a few others, all those that were on the NORAD Operations Division. So we're just up there. I'm watching ESPN or something. I'm laying back in the chair on the big conference table, got my feet up on the chair, and I'm watching, I don't know, one of those ESPN classics, those football games. And Orca, Jordan, who's an F-15 pilot, he's downstairs in the Air Warning Center. I'm up in the command center, not, like you saw in the war games. It's nowhere near as big as the movies make it. It's not even the size of this room, for those who haven't been in the mountain. I look over there, there are a couple guys sleeping. And that's okay. I mean, there's lots of bells and whistles to wake you up if something's going on. Okay? And so Orca comes running up there, and he's just banging on the door, and he's going, "Cookie! Cookie! Wake up! Wake up!" I get up and kind of run to the door, and he goes, "Turn on CNN." I go, "What the heck is going on there?" And we were sitting there as pilots going, well, maybe they had a heart attack. Maybe somebody had, how could you miss something that big? Like the World Trade Center. How could you fly? There's not a cloud in the sky. How is it possible? And in a second we hit, we both looked at each other, and we went, "We're under attack." He goes, "We're under attack." And now, all that practice I remember talking about, this training, these exercises we do, guess what I get to do now? I get to hit the real button. It wakes up 100 of the finest Americans in the world. Okay? And I've practiced this transmission many times. This NORAD Cheyenne Mountain with an update on situation X, blah, 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 at a time of such, 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 blah, 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 stand by. The NMCC will ring in, okay, go ahead with an update. We have no intelligence, we don't have a clue, blah, 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 whatever. Practice that 100 times, at least. And now I had to do it for real. Some general in the National Military Command Center said, "NORAD, are you there? All we're picking up is a crack here." So Orca hit me on the back, goes, "Do it, son, get going." I really didn't have much to tell them, other than what was on television. Our intelligence center had no idea. Everybody stayed on the line. Obviously, the president was in Florida. Flew to Louisiana. We got some fighters up to fly with him. A lot of myths out there. A lot of misconception about what was NORAD even really capable of doing. Okay. Remember, the FAA and civilian authorities handle hijacks. They handle hijacks. The best we can do is fly up there and at least tell them what's going on. If they ask for our help, which they did eventually, when they realized something was really bad going on, we did get some fighters airborne. What would we have done if they got there? There were no orders. There was no authority. There was no rules of engagement. There was no, I mean, some thought of some intel people and Tom Clancy about this, okay? But, and they're unarmed. So that's when we started talking about, and this is definitely declassified, but it was testimony. We started talking about ramming options. So we didn't know how many more were coming. The airlines pretty much grounded themselves. There's a lot of rumor out there that we grounded them. Yeah, technically we got an order out to stop all flying, but they had a vested interest to get on the ground right away. Most pilots were taking it into their own hand. Delta Flight 450, I'm landing in Cincinnati right now. So eventually later on the day we did get out there to publish the official orders where the military took the airspace back from the FAA. And that regulation is about that thick. It's called Scatana. It was designed for World War III. It wasn't designed for people taking airliners and turning them into explosive devices. Later on the end of the day, we pretty much had gotten down. We had about 300 fighters airborne by then. Couldn't talk to probably half of them. We basically, as the Cold War went away, we started shutting things off. All those internal radars the FAA used to use, they're costing money. They're costing money. They slowly been turning them off. Anybody remember seeing the flight tracks of those airplanes? And a couple of them would disappear for a while. Then they would come back. That's the raw radar tracks. Remember the one that went out into West Virginia? It disappeared for a while and they came back into D.C.? It disappeared because we don't have radar out there anymore. We do now. Gosh, we've got more coverage now, you wouldn't believe it. Okay. Go ahead, sir.
Why you didn't have allowable armament? That
Okay.
my mind.
Okay. Why do we not have armament? Okay. What do we do with NORAD prior to 9/11? The Bear bombers quit coming, except they don't even fly to Cuba anymore. Okay? And we might have one every now and then playing up in Alaska a little bit. Okay, we can handle that. I mean, after we screwed it up in '98, we make sure we won't screw it up again. All right? So what were these guys really doing? Primarily, if you want to get down to the absolute brutal truth, they're intercepting unknown airplanes. Well, what is an unknown airplane? It's not squawking right, not talking right. What's that? Drugs. Okay? Yeah, every now and then, but you got to go out and see what it is. Then and we had no authority. You can't shoot down anybody like that. We just get on the radio, call it back in. That's a twin engine. It's a twin engine Cessna. It's flying about 6,000 feet. He's done about 140 miles an hour, or whatever, 200 miles an hour, and he's heading west. Looks like he's going to Fort Lauderdale. That's what NORAD was doing. On September 10th, that's what NORAD was doing. You know, the Soviets went away. That's what NORAD was all about. Continental air defense of North America. We're in a bilateral agreement with Canada on it. To them, it's a treaty. To us, it's just short of a, just right under a treaty. Okay? That's what NORAD was. It was to stop the inbound bombers. And back in the 60s and 70s, NORAD was big. I mean, almost every guard base in America, and many active, it used to be the old Air Defense Command. Some of you guys probably remember that, don't you? Okay? I mean, NORAD was a big deal in the Cold War, but when the Cold War went away, why spend money on it? Sir, you had a question?
Who did NORAD think that was attacking the tower? Did they think it was just a small band of terrorists, or what country did they think was doing it?
We had no idea, sir. I mean, obviously after the second one hit, and you know, I've got most of the battle staffs up there with me now. One of the guys, actually squawked hijack. Another one turned it completely off. So clearly somebody was in charge of these airplanes, because we know our own American pilots and our own United pilots would not do this. So it was pretty much assumed that there was going to be, that they had been hijacked. Now I can, based on all the terrorist acts in the last X amount of years, I can take a wild guess that it was probably, from that part of the world, but I couldn't prove it. It wasn't even until later we started getting some of the tapes of those phone calls that people were making, and that you had an indication that they were Arabic. But I had no proof. I'm basically telling the whole command authority I don't have a clue. I mean, it's in somewhat more professional wording. At a time of such and such and such, I don't have a clue what's going on. And I don't know if there's any more. I don't know where they are. Anyway, General Everhart, a wonderful, wonderful four-star general, whose daughter went to Clemson. Got into the mountain about 30 minutes later. By the time they got him in, we closed the doors. Probably, I mean, I don't know. Oh, we did. But he started taking over a lot of the direct phone calls with the higher leadership. And I personally, at that point, just became a assistant to him and whatever he needed. I left the mountain 38 hours later. Already been on a ship. We just took cat naps. I tried to leave, go get in my car and drive down the mountain, but the security was so overwhelming. I talked to my wife down at Peterson Air Force Base. She said, "You can't even get on the base right now anyway." So I go back into the mountain, went downstairs, found a cot, and just went to sleep. And woke up, I don't know, a night of sleep, and went back up and just got on duty. It's a pretty unique place. If you've never been in there, I mean, you can camp out in there for a while. There's a nice restaurant, fresh water, and you can at least go in the bathrooms and kind of splash water all over yourself. And I always carried a little dot kit where you got at least a toothbrush and some toothpaste and a razor. So I basically lived there for a while. Go ahead.
How long did it take them to make the decision to allow a shoot down?
Well, let's go back to my phone call. The Vice President, Dick Cheney, was on the line. The President was not on the line because he was airborne. He could have been on the line, but he wasn't at this particular moment. The Vice President came back on and said, "NORAD, I forgot his call sign, something too. You are authorized to shoot down anything in the NCR that's not doing what it's supposed to be doing. The National Capital Region, NCR." So halfway through the day, that's the only place we got any clear orders or authority to do something. And of course, by then, we now do have armed fighters up almost all over the place. I'm sure out here in Salt Lake, the Hill was up here flying pretty quick too. Okay? Of course, during the Olympics, y'all all remember that, but you see what I'm saying? So that was the only authority that I ever had until it moves on down the road a couple days and we start formulating a plan. And we start formulating, the lawyers start getting involved. I mean, we got to come up with some rules of engagement here. We're writing a whole new chapter. We're writing a whole new book. It's never been done before. But this thought that we might have to shoot down our own people. And think about the burden on the pilot. I mean, we got into some serious emotional thought on this, okay? I'm going to shoot down a civilian airliner, likely full of my fellow citizens, to protect so it can't hit some building in Washington, D.C., but it's going to kill somebody on the ground. It's not likely it's just going to kill the passenger. So think of this dilemma that we all struggled with as we tried to sort out the rules of how we're going to do this. Do we think the guys will really do it? You know, I mean, this is unprecedented. This is not like any kind of war we've ever fought, at least as far as NORAD is concerned. I mean, we're asking our young pilots to go out there and, dude, if you ask me to go out there and shoot an Iraqi, I'll get right on it. Okay? Not that I want to, but I will if I have to, if we're in a battle. But now just think about the consequences of this. That airplane's going to hit a mall. It's going to hit a school. It's going to hit a neighborhood. So we've just swapped this bunch of American citizens for that bunch of American citizens. Think about that. As a fighter pilot, none of us had ever dealt with it. As an intel people, our lawyers, none of us had dealt with that concept. It took us a while to work through it. That's all I'm trying to tell you. It took us a while. It wasn't like the next day. We had fighters airborne the next day, and they were armed, but everything was going to ground. The only thing that was flying in America was occasionally some farmer in Kansas who doesn't even have television. Okay? And he's out there flying his crop duster. Okay? I got the beans to spray here. I got to let this get in the way. You know. So. Anyway, I guess what I'm trying to tell you, as I told you right before I even started this story, probably the most difficult and rewarding assignment I ever had was in NORAD. And I wasn't flying.
Did we have any pilots that declined to fly?
Not that I know of, sir. Not that I know of. But we did ask our squadron commanders to have discussions about it. Think about it. The U.S. government, that pilot, they're going to be in court for 30 years, one way or the other. No matter what happens. I don't care.
You're talking F-15s, is that what they were going to use?
F-16s and F-15s, actually both. We had more F-16s eventually up on word.
How many hours did it take to arm them, and what kind of armament did they put on them?
Well, by the end of the night, we pretty much had 20-something bases were on alert or had airborne fighters. Remember when we went about 7 days and no airliners flew? And the only noise you might have heard in the sky was those F-16s from Hill Air Force Base. That was it. There was nothing flying around here, except you could hear them at night, 24 hours. By the evening, pretty much those earlier airplanes were on the ground. We formulated our tanker plan, our AWACS plan to cover like New York. I mean, okay, no offense, but southern Utah really didn't need protecting. Ogden was probably not high on the list of targets for Al-Qaeda, okay?
How about Clemson?
Yeah, but I'll tell you what, speaking of Clemson, there is a nuclear power plant 18 miles from it. And that became a huge concern for all of us, all of the nuclear power plants nationwide. So we basically, a bunch of fighter pilots down in Tyndall, sat around a room in the Air Operations Center there and started building a plan. They started throwing a plan up. But we were getting direction from the National Capital Region too. You know, it's like we want 4 airplanes over Washington D.C., not 2. Okay, yes sir. All right, we'll get them there. And so, but they started building an ATO, an air tasking order of how we're going to do this. And I will tell you, it's tremendously different now than what it was then. We had no basis. We had nowhere to start. So we started there, and every day we got more refinements on rules, got more radios hooked up, got more radars turned back on. We basically revived, and then some, the entire NORAD network from the Cold War.
How come we didn't have some closer to Washington or at Washington?
Well,
That blows my mind.
okay, go back and think about this a minute. We're not worried about anybody bombing Washington anymore. So we spaced them out around, based around, here's one that can do the South Atlantic, here's one that can do the Middle Atlantic, and here's one that can do the Northern Atlantic. Here's one that can do the Northern Pacific, here's one that can do the Southern Pacific, and here's one in Alaska that can do everything up there. We'll put one down here in Ellington so it can do the Gulf Coast. And I'm telling you, the only time those guys would scramble is if there's an unknown radar. And remember, all the radars, where are they looking? Where are they looking? They're looking out of the ocean. They aren't looking at Baltimore. They aren't turned around looking at, Morgantown, West Virginia. They're looking outward. So when you do these unknown things coming towards America, remember the North American Aerospace Defense Command. It implies outward look. See? And when things come from the outside and we don't know what they are, we launch somebody to go look at them. 3/4 of the time, before anybody could even get to them, we'd figure out what it was. Oh, you're squawking the wrong thing. You didn't talk to somebody at the right time. So the vast majority of them, before the fighters ever got there and take a look, you can go home. We know what it is. We weren't looking for airliners within the United States to go flying into buildings.
Was the first aircraft that was up in New York, was that unarmed? I believe, it seems like there was some F-15s up there, but were they unarmed?
Okay, they were armed, but likely. They never made it anyway, but they were lightly armed. You know why? Because of the exercise. Remember I told you at the very beginning we were doing an exercise? Well, the local units, that's when they also train and put up their ordnance. One unit, I won't say anything about this because I'll make you have to sign 3 papers. Actually flies armed more times than not but that's for a different reason. You know where all those people come across that little piece of water and try to get onto this other piece of land? That's what they have a little bit more of a look. But most of the others are totally unarmed.
Did they have air-to-air missiles or?
Yes, yes, they were F-15s, and they had air-to-air missiles. The two F-16s that got to DC right at first, they weren't armed. A lot of speculation about that. The other one that crashed down in Pennsylvania, you know, the closest that airplane, trust me, I watched it, God, it was 80 miles from that airplane. Had nothing to do with it. Nothing. But that's usually the guy. Always people like ask me about those F-16s. What, you know, it was a done deal. It was over. By the time that one crashed in Pennsylvania, it was over. So, anywho, but I'll tell you this right now, General Everhart is still in charge of NORAD, and he's co-commander, also the commander of the NORTHCOM, basically the military arm of Homeland Defense. It has changed drastically, and they're probably on ROE, Rules of Engagement, serial number 6 right now. Because we still pull alert out here every now and then. I don't know if anybody noticed. So we have to keep up with what NORAD does. Obviously, we did the Olympics. Y'all remember that, air coverage. I mean, we still pull alert every now and then when we go to a certain level, like orange, a certain amount of bases will come back up. I won't tell you the number, okay? They'll haul me out of here on that one. Are there any reporters in the room? There are. I need to talk to you, Loretta. We're going to have a discussion. I'm teasing, of course. What else?
Don't want to change the subject too much, sir, but did you get over to Iraqi freedom and stuff?
No, I did not. I did not get over there personally. We had our air control squadron. The 729th Air Control Squadron was in Kuwait when the war started, and then towards the end helped move all the equipment up to Baghdad. And they were there. Our 421 Fighter Squadron went to Gutter, the little tiny that island right there, just after the war, and they were doing all the patrolling. Got to hit a terrorist camp. That one is out by Syria. There's about 60 or 70 of them in there. Some of y'all might have read something about that. Let's see here. The 729 will have to be going again here pretty soon. I can't tell you the date, obviously, but they'll be going back. They'll be going to Baghdad. That's really it. We've had some cats and dogs here and there. I think our public affairs officer is over there. They were just individually tasked to go. But right now, sir.
Do we have any Air Force in country in Iraq right now stationed at any of their air bases? You never see anything about it on the news.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, we don't see it on the news. Or
Yes.
Yes, it's there.
Yes.
What's your current assignment?
Oh. Me personally, I'm the vice wing commander. The wing has about 2,700 people, a maintenance group and an ops group, and Colonel Lyon is the wing commander. He's the top guy, and I'm the number 2 guy.
So you're not on the flying side then, right now?
Oh, I fly. Yes, sir. We both fly.
Well, I know, but I meant as far as the squadrons aren't under your command.
Well, okay, we have squadron commanders. We have 3 flying squadrons, an operational support squadron, the 729 Air Control Squadron. They all work for a group commander, the operations group commander. And over here, you got the aircraft maintenance squadron, component maintenance squadron, logistic squadron, MOS, blah, blah, blah. And they all work for a maintenance group commander. We have the 388 range squadron, which kind of sits over here by itself. They all report, those 2 group commanders and a squadron commander report to Colonel Lyon and me. Kind of like a Christmas tree going downhill. let's see, I kinda got all the airplanes here a little bit.
Who signed it?
Hang on, you had a question?
I'm just calling.
Oh, okay, sir?
Well, I was just wondering about that. You said the A-10 didn't have an autopilot.
Right.
And when that plane went from Luke to Colorado, there was speculation that the autopilot was flying.
Gotta remember, I left the A-10 in '85. They have done a lot to that airplane since then, and I don't know what could be on it. For all I know, it's got a world-class autopilot now. When did that happen? That was like 94,
I can't remember.
95. I know LASTE what does LASTE stand for? Low altitude system, something. They put that on the A-10, and with that may have come an autopilot, but not when I flew it.
Who decides on your flights then? How did you know you got to leave?
Who decides on my flights? I tell them what I want to do. And right now I'm assigned to the 4th Fighter Squadron. All of us colonels we get assigned to one of the squadrons to fly with, and every 3 months we rotate around. So this happened to be my last few months in the Air Force are with the Fujians. And so they take care of my flying schedule. They take care of my flying gear. They take care of my records. Everything stuff. Sir?
Earlier, you mentioned the SWOOT system. Could you give us a little gee-whiz on the form-fit function of AMRAAM?
The form-fit function of AMRAAM.
How does that thing work?
We're going to have to sign a lot of letters. We're going to be signing a lot of letters. Okay, I'll give you the short, unclassified version. The problem with weapons, I can get away with almost anything as long as I don't talk about ranges. Okay? I can pretty much get away with anything as long as I don't talk about ranges. All right. The problem is I need a red pen for the bad guy. But the bad guy will have to be green then. Okay, I'm in this guy, I'm here, and this guy's here. We're probably, we'll say we're double that. Okay, we're about that far apart, and I'm going 500 miles an hour. He's going 500 miles an hour. So we have 1,000 knots closure. Coming to get 1,000 knots. So my little radar locks him up. We have better radars. And then I'm looking on a radar scope, and I go, all right.